It's the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you live from the Murphy Center on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University, site of the TSSAA Girls High School State Basketball Championships. It's semifinal Friday here. We are getting ready for the second Class 2A semifinal of the day between York Institute and Gatlinburg Pittman. We just got done with the first 2A semifinal as Loretta lost to Martin Westview. So Westview will be taking on this winner in tomorrow's state finals in Class 2A. Thanks for joining us. Again, we're here at the Murphy Center. We'll be here for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports topics, and we got plenty to talk about, do we not, Mr. Neely?
Yeah, big show today. Might as well close out the week with a bang. We roll right into Selection Sunday, and there is plenty to break down, plenty to preview. Looking forward to a good show, as this will be our final rodeo here in the Glass House this week, as the teams that are still playing, man, if you're making it to tomorrow, it's all gravy, right? You're gunning for a gold ball tomorrow. This is a big day, though, semifinal action. You kind of just get rejuvenated. Yesterday, you hit a little bit of a wall, but it's hard not to be juiced up whenever you get ready with a gold ball potentially on the line.
Absolutely it is. And again, we do have a big show today. In the second hour, I know we told you Wednesday we would be joined by Heather Williams, but I feel pretty good about getting Heather today. She's going to join us to talk a little NASCAR. We had some logistical situations crop up on Wednesday, and she wasn't able to be with us, but I think everything's been ironed out. We're going to talk some NASCAR with Heather in the second hour. In the next segment, we're going to be joined by Ben Arthur of Fox Sports as we continue to consider the Titans' off-season activity as they roll up to the draft next month and getting ready for that with some personnel moves pretty much on the daily. I don't know if I'd heard anything today, but they've been quite active. So we'll catch up with Ben, talk a little bit about that. We'll also be talking some basketball, plenty of that going on. Got some baseball as Southeastern Conference League play begins this weekend. And as we've said in football, as we've said in men's and women's basketball, it's going to be a meat grinder in the SEC during baseball season, and we'll tell you why when we get to that later on. Again, a lot of hoops going on. As you hear the Gatlinburg Pittman pep band cranking up in the background, hopefully we can out-talk them for the next couple of hours. But college basketball tournament action going on across the country, and certainly at Bridgestone Arena, at the Von Braun Center down in Huntsville, and a number of other spots. We'll talk about a lot of that as the show continues, and we'll get you ready for the weekend with everything that's coming up. We got Grizzlies, we got Predators, we got NSC, we've got, as Wade said, Selection Sunday across the board. Men's, women's, junior college, it's all going on. So looking forward to getting into all of that here over the next couple of hours. And, man, they're loud.
They're proud. They love cheering on their team. They got a big win on Wednesday. And Gatlinburg Pittman, moments away from tipping it off versus York. Two kind of regulars in the Glass House here, so it should be a fun showdown as we kind of kick off our show as well.
Let's go ahead and kick it off while the band is kind of taking a break there with yesterday's results and this weekend schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Let's dive right in, folks. Let's wind back the clock to yesterday, and here in the Glass House, Heritage defeated Portland in teams of local interest, 60-36. That lets us jump right into baseball, where Battle Creek knocked off Giles County 9-4. Blackman defeats Cleveland 10-0. Eagleville with a similar score, the exact score, in fact, 10-0 versus Cornersville. Fayetteville all over Hampshire 14-4. Hickman County with a 6-1 win versus Santa Fe. It was Laverne 10, Hunters Lane 2. Murfreesboro Central Magnet picks up a 9-7 win versus Jefferson County. Kirkwood was a 9-7 winner over Lebanon. Lawrence County topping Lewis County 6-5. Wayne County on Loretto 8-3 in yesterday's action. Middle Tennessee Monarchs were a 6-5 winner versus Mount Juliet Christian. Middle Tennessee Christian with a 10-3 win versus Upperman. Other scores: Creekwood defeating Mount Juliet 3-2. It was Mount Pleasant 6, East Hickman 5, Dixon County 7, Oakland 5. Forest was a 7-3 winner versus Richland. Rockvale 9-8 versus Columbia. Lebanon 8-7 versus Sevier County. Seymour with another 8-7 win versus Station Camp. Finally, coming down the stretch, it was Siegel with a 9-3 win versus Cookeville. Springfield topping Macon County 15-4. Stewart's Creek with a 10-0 win versus Clarksville Northwest. And Columbia Academy blanks Waverly 12-0.
In softball action on Thursday, Eagleville with a 20-9 victory over Blackman. It was Smyrna down in Cookeville 5-1. Columbia Central, we talked yesterday about Columbia Central, our Custom Stone Handlers in to win Life Team of the Week. They outscored Lawson 36-0 in 2 games last week. Well, they defeated East Hickman 24-1 yesterday. The bats are booming for the Lady Lions. Lawrence County with a 7-4 win over Marshall County. It was Franklin County 1, Murfreesboro Central nothing in a pitcher's duel there. Wow. Forest 7, Riverdale 5. Dobbins Bennett with a 4-3 win over Rockvale. Santa Fe defeated Frank Hughes 4-3. Siegel double up Ravenwood 10-5. Warren County with a 17-0 win over Spring Hill. And Zion Christian defeated South Haven Christian 15-0. Boys soccer action. Battle Creek 8, Loretto 0. Columbia Academy edged Richland 3-2. Marshall County with a 9-0 win over Culleoka. Hendersonville with a 9-0 win over White House. Laverne blanked Dixon County 5-0. BGA Battleground Academy defeated Middle Tennessee Christian 4-0. Rockvale with a 2-1 win over Riverdale. Wilson Central defeated Smith County 6-1. And in men's college basketball action last night of local interest, late last night, in double overtime, Middle Tennessee State defeats Louisiana Tech 77-75 down in Huntsville to advance to the Conference USA men's basketball semifinals. We'll talk more about that in a second.
Big win for the Blue Raiders. Took a couple of overtime periods, but got the dub that they desperately needed, that they desperately wanted versus Louisiana Tech. Let's go to today's schedule. A couple games already in the books. We've referenced these, but in action here in Murfreesboro. This one got underway at 11 a.m. Greenfield defeats the Richland Lady Raiders 47-40 in the single-A semifinals. In double-A action, Westview knocks off Loretto 64-39. That brings us to your baseball schedule for this evening. And let's kick things off with a game that's allegedly underway right now. Kirkwood scheduled to meet Murfreesboro Central Magnet at 1 p.m. At 3:30, Providence Academy taking on Kirkwood. 4 p.m., it's Mosley out of Florida versus Riverdale. White House Heritage is at Good Pasture at 4. At 4:30, Franklin Road Academy taking on Tullahoma. Also at 4:30, East Hickman at Hampshire. Loretto at Hart County. 5 p.m. showdowns. Waverly will be on the road at Creekwood. Clarksville Northeast is at Dobbins Bennett. Santa Fe is traveling to Perry County. Lebanon is on the road at Powell. That caps your 5 o'clock window. 5:30 start time for Zion Christian, who's at Mount Pleasant. 6 p.m. showdowns. Providence Christian at Columbia Academy. Community is on the road at Eagleville. Springfield is at East Robertson. Lawrence County traveling to Lewis County. The Middle Tennessee Monarchs are at the Tennessee Heat. Portland is at Middle Tennessee Christian. 6:15 now. Harpeth will be on the road at Forest. At 6:30 tonight, it'll be Smyrna at Collierville. Battle Creek will be at Giles County. Also at 6:30, Dinsworth on the road at Stewart's Creek. And then at 7 p.m. tonight, Clarksville Northwest is at Blackman. Columbia is at Oakland. Dixon County is on the road at Siegel. And we did not have a start time listed, but the schedule shows Independence taking on Rockvale.
In softball action today, it's a 3 o'clock start for White House and Middle Tennessee Christian, not sure where. 4 o'clock, Dobbins Bennett takes on Smyrna. Also at 4, Summertown is at Dyer County. White House Heritage faces Laverne at 4:30. Also at 4:30, Brentwood faces Siegel. Stewart's Creek is at Eagleville at 5. Culleoka travels to Battle Creek at 5. Also at 5, Westmoreland is at Cott County. 6 o'clock start for Cascade at Columbia Central. Also at 6, Laverne takes on Middle Tennessee Christian. Green Hill and Oakland face off at 6:30. Community plays Mount Pleasant at Zion at 6:30. At 7 o'clock, it's Dixon County and Smyrna. At 8:30, Zion Christian is hosting Community. And at 9, Brentwood and Oakland face off. On the pitch today, it's a 5:30 start for Nolensville at Murfreesboro Central. Also, Blackman is at Spring Hill at 5:30. Richland goes to Lawrence County for a 6 o'clock first touch. Giles County travels to Giles County plays Athens, Alabama. No.
That's all right. I tripped us up there. Giles County was scheduled to play Athens, Alabama. Athens had severe weather last night, so they had to scratch that game due to field conditions. Giles County, though, said, you know what? We want to play.
Yeah.
And so they got Smyrna coming to the crib tonight at 7 o'clock.
So Smyrna is coming to Giles County, and that's a 7 o'clock start. There we go.
I think we got that right.
All right. Warren County is at Columbia Central at 7 o'clock. Oakland is at Siegel at 7. Men's basketball action. Conference USA semifinal. Middle Tennessee State and Jack State tipped off just a bit ago down at the Von Braun Center in Huntsville. Let's see what we got here. We got a score? We got no score. It's been delayed. I guess something ran over. Anyway, at the bottom of this hour, Texas and Tennessee will face off in the SEC tournament quarterfinals down at the Bridgestone Arena. Women's basketball, Conference USA, 8 o'clock scheduled tip for Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee State in Huntsville. Also, in the Missouri Valley Conference, it's Northern Iowa and Belmont. That's an 8:30 start. Both of those games are on ESPN+. Texas and Tennessee is on ESPN. Middle Tennessee State and Jacksonville State is on one of the ESPN networks. Check your local listings. In the association tonight, 7 o'clock start, Cleveland is at Memphis. You can see it on FanDuel Sports. We'll talk more about that one later in the show. Also, the Predators continue their West Coast swing. They are at Anaheim taking on the Ducks. That's a 9 o'clock puck drop. You can see it on FanDuel Sports.
That rolls us into Saturday. Let's go to the Diamond where baseball action gets underway at 9:30 between Collinwood and Zion Christian. At 10 a.m., Clarksville Northeast is taking on Unicoi County. 11 a.m. start time as Murfreesboro Central Magnet will head to Bearden. 11:45, Collinwood will be taking on Culleoka. At noon, you can catch Rossview versus Mount Juliet. Also at noon, Innsworth is on the road at Siegel. Columbia is at Stewart's Creek. At 12:30, Father Ryan taking on Collierville. At 1 p.m., Holmes County out of Florida will take on Riverdale. At 1:30, you can catch Smyrna on the road at Bartlett. 1:30 p.m. start times as well for Clarksville Academy at Hendersonville, and Hickson taking on Central Magnet. 2 p.m. showdown between Fairview and Culleoka. 2:30 start time for Clarksville Northwest at Middle Tennessee Christian. Same times for Rossview at Oakland, Cookeville at Blackman. 3 o'clock first pitch between Clarksville Academy and Greenville. 5 o'clock will be your start time for Hunters Lane at Laverne. 6 p.m. Tullahoma versus Dixon County. At 6:30, it'll be Wayne County at Mount Pleasant. Start time not listed, but still listed, Webb School at Summit.
Softball action on Saturday. It's a 9 o'clock start for White House Heritage and Middle Tennessee Christian. Also at 9 o'clock, Green Hill and Siegel will face off. At 10:30, it's White House and Laverne. Also Creekwood and Smyrna. 2 o'clock start. This is a doubleheader. First game is at 2 o'clock as Centennial faces host Columbia Central. Second game to follow. At 6 o'clock, Summertown travels to Henry County. Boys lacrosse, 12 o'clock. Oakland is at Soddy Daisy. Now, I don't know if that's 12 o'clock Oakland time or 12 o'clock Soddy Daisy time because they're not the same 12 o'clock. So if you are interested in Oakland and Soddy Daisy boys lacrosse, be sure and check that start time. On the ice tomorrow, 7 o'clock our time.
There we go.
The Predators are at the Los Angeles Kings. You can see that one on FanDuel. Also at 7 o'clock, also on FanDuel, the Memphis Grizzlies on the backside of a back-to-back taking on visiting Miami at the FedEx Forum. And on Sunday at 1:25, and not a minute later, it will be the Nashville Soccer Club taking on the host Philadelphia Union. Again, that's a 125 first touch. You can see it on Fox. You can also see it on Apple TV. The NSC coming off of a win in their last outing, trying to go back-to-back. Keep an eye on that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your rundown. Top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And we didn't quite get to this yesterday, and we couldn't have done it justice if we had. John Feinstein, a name that stands on its own in terms of sports journalism, in terms of sports writing. Season on the brink is the first thing I think of when I hear that name. John Feinstein passed away yesterday at the age of 69. And, I mean, when you talk about sports books and authors of sports books, John Feinstein and A Season on the Brink was just iconic to anybody in that time. And if you consider yourself a sports fan who reads and you've not read that, then I have to question you. Be sure, if you don't read anything else, check that out, because, you know, the access that he had to the Indiana University basketball program that year and to Bob Knight and what he wrote out of it. And one of the things that you're seeing as you see the tributes to John Feinstein here over the last 24 hours is, you know, he wasn't always well liked. And one of the reasons he wasn't always well liked was because he was truthful.
Called it like he saw it, right?
And apparently Bob Knight felt betrayed by the way he was portrayed in the book, A Season on the Brink. And, you know, Bob Knight is one of those guys, was one of those guys, and when you get on his bad side, there's no getting off of it. But, I mean, it felt like a pretty accurate portrayal, and maybe that was the problem. I don't know. But it's a great read. It was a great read, you know, when it first came out. I'm sure it still is, with everything that went on with that team at that particular time. That was during the recruitment of Damon Bailey.
I mean, that like you said, is a legendary literary work that kind of really transcends sports, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and obviously the show and, you know, the documentary that kind of encompasses every bit of that. And this was one that made big news, not just in the sports community, but across really all media yesterday. It was one that hits, and he will be sorely missed. Like you said, one of their kind of titans in that industry. So I've not read Season on the Brink. Two of my favorites, though, that he has written is When March Went Mad, about the Larry Bird Magic, you know, duels that they had. And then another one, The Punch, with Rudy Tomjanovich and Kermit Washington. A wild kind of retelling of that fateful story. So, I mean, they're just many. He's wrote a great one about Army and Navy. I mean, we could go on and on about this guy. And a lot of people have to pay tribute to one of the titans in not just sports writing, but writing in general.
45 books.
That's a lot of books.
That is a lot of books. He wrote 45 books. I've not written one, and the idea of writing one is just overwhelming to me just to think about. This guy wrote 45. He also worked for the Washington Post, but he went where he wanted to go. He wrote what he wanted to write pretty much, and whoever, you know, got taken to task in his writing, it was just the way it was, because he just the one thing another thing that a lot of people are saying is he was very opinionated, but his opinions were kind of based in what he believed.
Yeah. And he had a little evidence to back it up, right? Or you know, at least be able to make his claim. He will be sorely missed, and you're right. I mean, kind of spawned in many regards that as a genre. You know, you could go to any bookstore now, and there's a zillion sports books, but kind of spawning that as a true, real literary genre was kind of wild to see, and kind of really paints the picture of who he was in many regards.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to his family, to his friends, to the sports writing community, we send our thoughts and condolences following the loss of John Feinstein, who died Thursday, at the age of 69. Let's take a break here on the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today. When we come back, we will be joined by Ben Arthur of Fox Sports. Stick around.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
The weekend warm-up continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, as we come to you from the Murphy Center on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University, site of the TSSAA Girls Basketball State Championships. York Institute is up on Gatlinburg-Pittman 20-14, 2 minutes into the second period here. The winner will catch Westview in the Class 2A State Championship game tomorrow. So we will keep you posted on that as best we can. Right now, though, we want to go to Ben Arthur of Fox Sports as the Titans continue to be active in the offseason. Ben, good afternoon.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
What up, Ben?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, hanging in there.
Good. I know that the offseason is a different kind of busy than the season, but and you in your capacity as AFC South writer for Fox Sports, you've particularly got a lot going on because you're not just worried about one team. But, what is it about the Titans' activity here over the past few days with free agency opening up that has kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, I think number one is the reliability and durability of a lot of the guys they've signed. I don't think anything will jump off the table. I mean, there are people who have varying opinions on the Dan Moore Jr. signing and maybe overpaying for him, but he's a guy who's been consistently available, and that's a theme for a lot of the guys they've brought in. Cody Barton, Xavier Woods, these guys they've brought in as kind of the Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker era, however you want to kind of package it. I think the theme so far has been guys who have been productive, reliable, guys who haven't had substantial injury histories. And so I think that's probably the number one thing that has stood out to me at this point.
It's interesting because I think that's kind of what caught our eye as well is the durability aspect of the folks that they brought in. And it's almost like the Titans have dealt with injuries to such a large degree over the last 2 or 3 seasons that they want to try to make sure that doesn't continue to be the case.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? Because especially as you look at the Titans and they've kind of hammered this home, right? They want to be a team built through the draft, but as you kind of develop those young guys, you need to have veterans in place that you can depend on. And unfortunately for the Titans, that hasn't kind of been the case. And the guy I just go to last year, just being L'Jarius Sneed, a guy they gave a massive contract to acquire from the Chiefs, was supposed to be your CB1, and he misses most of the season. And that kind of, good thing for them. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Seems to have been a hit for them. But I think overall across the board, across numerous positions, they need to make sure as they're kind of building the future of the team through the draft that they bring in veterans, at least for the short term, who have a track record of reliability and dependability. And I think that's kind of what we've seen to this point.
I think it's interesting, Ben, in that, you can't really predict injuries necessarily. And just because a person has not had issues with injuries doesn't necessarily mean that they won't. I mean, I understand the Titans' concern because they've been bitten so many times by the injury bug here over the last little bit. You mentioned Sneed among other folks after signing them to big contracts. But I guess I just don't know how much track record impacts what may happen going forward on that front.
Yeah, it is hard mode to kind of keep track of that, right? Because I hear a lot of guys say like it's 100% guarantee injury sport and league, right? That's going to happen, but I think you'd much rather have the guy, especially veteran guys in the NFL who've been in the NFL for like 7-8+ years and who clearly have a system in place, right, to where they know how to keep track of their bodies, and they've been available for dozens of games, maybe even hitting the century mark, like in the case of Kevin Zeitler, who's going to be the right guard, who's played over 100 games. I think he started something like 96. When you have guys like that who have a proven track record, I think that's the best thing that you can look at in a league where guys are going to get injured regardless. Like we talked about the Sneed example, but Sneed is a guy who kind of had those concerns when they traded for him. I mean, his upside, what he's kind of been as a number one corner, but there was all that talk about kind of the knee maintenance or whatever that he had going on in Kansas City. And we saw that translate to Nashville. And then unfortunately for him and for the team, he had other injury issues come up as well. But I think when you do know that guys are going to get injured and you do know that you need to bring in veterans you could depend on, I think at least knowing that you have guys who know how to take care of their body and have a proven track record of that year over year over year over year, I think that's all kind of you can look for and ask for.
Ben, I want to ask, I'm kind of curious. We know Mike Morganzi is kind of, fresh in this role. We obviously know Chad Brinker's, heavily involved, at least in some capacity. I'm curious, do we have enough evidence yet? Does this kind of feel like the moves that Morganzi, that we can maybe expect in future seasons? Or is this kind of, hey, let's just plug whatever holes we can? I'm just kind of curious what this I guess essentially what the free agency strategy of this new regime in the front office might potentially look like, if you got any insight.
Yeah, I don't know that we can draw any like long-term kind of themes, takeaways, because at the end of the day, it still has only been a few days of free agency under this Mike Borgonzi era, and it's very circumstantial, right? In terms of the team he's entering, right? Like he knows, and everyone who's been around the Titans knows that this is a team that is incredibly talent deficient. This was one of the worst rosters in the NFL last season. They've needed to plug a lot of holes, and frankly, guys who, as we've kind of talked about, that they need to bring in guys who they know they can depend on as they look to bring in the young guys who are going to be the future of this team. And so I think, I don't know that we can draw any like broader themes because it is still so early, but I think Mike Borgonzi is really just operating with what he's working with, right? And that's a team that's been terrible for a couple years now and has a lot of holes. And I think he's just kind of operating accordingly. And I think he's taking a lot from what he learned from the Chiefs, in that, I mean, we all look at the success they've had now, but he, at the beginning of his time with them, like they were really, really bad too. And so I think he's kind of taking from his experiences back then and kind of maybe applying it a little bit to where the Titans need to be moving forward.
It kind of just feels like, and Mo and I have, talked about it. I mean, every franchise says they want to build through the draft, but it kind of really does, and it's easy for the Titans, whether they select at one or, maybe find a dance partner to trade with. But it does feel like, hey, let's make a few moves, not necessarily the splashiest of moves, but let's, be smart with our money and hopefully land on a couple of picks and then just kind of build. It feels like they're just naturally trying to find that next step, whatever that is. And starting from the bottom, the good news is, in theory, it can only go up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it does seem very calculated, right? Because it's not like the Titans entered this offseason without cap space. I mean, they were, I don't remember exactly where they stood ahead of the legal tampering period, but they were definitely top 12, top 10, somewhere in that range in terms of cap space. And they've chosen not to be super aggressive apart from the Dan Moore Jr. signing. So yeah, I mean, this very much looks like a patient approach, and it looks like a team that knows it's not going to win a Super Bowl in the 2025 season. I mean, obviously the goal is to win, but I think they're operating in a way that's very realistic to where this team is at right now.
Makes sense.
Ben Arthur of Fox Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And Ben, I have jotted down incredibly talent deficient. We will be using that again at some point because I think that's just a perfect description of this Tennessee Titans team that went 3-14 in 2024 and holds the number one pick in the upcoming draft. So that said, have you gleaned any clues as to what might happen with that number one pick? I mean, are we to take anything from the Brandon Allen signing that they are leaning quarterback with that pick, or might they be leaning to a different pick E or to moving that pick entirely? I mean, do you have any feel at all for that?
Yeah, it definitely seems like quarterback is the priority at this point. My gut wants to say Cam Ward and just like how they've constructed this O-line. I mean, we don't know how good or not this O-line is going to be, but this on paper, at least, and I stress on paper, this is supposed to be the best O-line that they've had in a few years. And, between Dan Moore and Skronsky, Cushenberry, Al Ziegler, and then Lucy Latham going to what maybe his natural spot at right tackle. They have a lot of other holes on this team. The quarterback is just so glaring right now. They haven't swung on these kind of bigger name veteran quarterbacks, and so Cam Ward certainly seems like the guy for me. But I would be opposed to, if I'm the Titans, if you think you can trade back from one of two spots and maybe still get Shedeur Sanders and then be able to get other premium guys at add more top 100 picks, use some more leverage of that number one pick. I think that arguably might be the best case scenario for them in terms of making sure you use the top pick on the quarterback, making sure you're able to get enough top 100 picks to like kind of fill out this roster. So yeah, it's definitely going to be quarterback. I feel with that top pick. I just don't know if it's going to be Cam Ward, which I think is going to be the guy if they do stay at 1. But if they do trade back, it seems like Shedeur is someone that they would target.
Okay, so riddle me this, Batman. You've signed Brandon Allen.
Yeah.
You're going to take Ward, theoretically. What are you going to do with Will Levis? He doesn't bring a whole lot, if anything, in a trade, does he? I mean, are you just going to out and out release him? You're not going to bring him to camp, are you?
Yeah, well, I think that they'd absolutely bring him to camp. And I think the way to look at it is like I mean, at the end of the day, we have to remember, like, coming out of the 2023 draft, a lot of people thought he was a first-round pick. I mean, some people thought he was going to go in the top 5 before dropping to the Titans at the top of the second round. And he's only played 2 years in the NFL. And you could look at the circumstances he's had and maybe say, look, that maybe hasn't been all that favorable for him. So if you're the Titans and you kind of just let him compete and maybe he has a great preseason or whatever, and maybe he's a trade chip, right? Like maybe he's a team that someone that maybe lost their quarterback in the time of training camp or preseason to an injury, or they liked Will Levis coming out of Kentucky and they're willing to overpay with a nice draft pick. I mean, that's something that I think if you're the Titans, you're going to have to look at, because I mean, clearly the way they're operating with the kind of the inevitability that they're going to take a quarterback number 1 or very, very high at the top of the first round. I mean, you're operating like he's not your future, right? And other teams are seeing that. And so I think best case scenario for Will and the Titans is for him to just ball out, put some good tape on, like in preseason or whatever, and maybe he's a trade chip. I could see that reality playing out.
Ben Arthur of Fox Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Ben, let me ask you, go back a couple of weeks to the Harold Landry situation where they gave him permission to seek a trade, and no, that didn't work out. They wound up releasing him. The Patriots signed him as a free agent. The Titans get nothing. Yeah. How much does it benefit a team to tell a player, you've got permission to go out and seek a trade? How often does that trade come about as opposed to that player being released and you getting nothing out of it? Is that good business necessarily?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, that it doesn't really seem like good business. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head as you asked me, like what other examples I could think of where a team like publicly, right, like kind of let the player and the agent kind of look for suitors and that actually pan out. I can't really think of an example right now, but for Harold's case, and I guess maybe for the Titans, I mean, he was so well respected with the Titans. He was their longest tenured player. I mean, he's a guy who effort and work ethic and in terms of being a model Titan, like that's never been an issue for him. And there are circumstances, right, where we see maybe franchises not maybe operating in the best interest of their business, but sometimes there are situations like maybe this one where it looks like they genuinely want what's best for the player, or let them at least give that opportunity or leave the door open or ajar a little bit. And I think this could be kind of a situation where that happens. And look, I don't know if this will apply to Harold's situation in terms of the deal he signed with the Patriots, but you have to think of the compensatory pick that the Titans could potentially be getting back in a year from now. Like he did, I think it was like 3 years, 41 or 42 million. I mean, that's a big deal. And so you do have to think in at least his case, right, where he's released, but he still ends up signing a big deal with another team, the Titans could still end up getting a reward from this, even though they didn't get the trade situation. So I think that's something to think about as well.
Ben, real quick, we've talked a lot on this show about the Texans and their offensive line. We've talked a little bit about the Colts and potentially what they may or may not be looking at the quarterback situation. Haven't heard really much, if anything, out of the Jags, and I don't really necessarily want to talk about the Jags, but it feels like they're a little too quiet. What do they got cooking down there?
Well, I mean, the Jags haven't been quiet. I mean, I think they've signed at least 9 guys. But honestly, I don't really know what they're doing. I think that's the biggest thing to me. Like, I don't think it's that they've been inactive. It's that I don't really know kind of the plan. To me, they've kind of signed some older guys, maybe given them money that I'm not sure warrants kind of the recent production and where they're at from an age standpoint, and even just production wise, where they rank in terms of other guys at their position. So I think that's the biggest thing to me, is like, I don't quite know what the Jags are doing. So I think with them and the Titans too, honestly, but I think a lot of these teams are still kind of incomplete, like very incomplete. Like, we can look at what the Texans have even done too. Like, I mean, like what are they, like, trading Tunsil, and they traded Kenyon Green, who didn't really work out for them as a first round pick, but their offensive, they're basically starting from close to ground zero with that offensive line, and that's not necessarily something you want to see from them, especially that's probably not what CJ Stroud wants to hear.
Yeah.
Are they? Yeah. Well, I think in general, apart from the Colts, who I actually like the moves they've made to this point, but the other 3 teams in the division, I feel like they're very incomplete at this point. So,
speaking of the Colts, I mean, does either Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson win that QB1 position, or does one of them lose it? I mean, they really seem like they are out on Richardson at this point, and I'm just not sure that Daniel Jones, given his track record with the Giants, is necessarily a viable option either.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't think they're necessarily out on Anthony Richardson just yet, because you look at the deal that Daniel Jones signed, and people will talk about, what is it, like $14 million fully guaranteed or whatever. But if you look at it and he ends up starting for them, like, he's going to be the cheapest non-rookie quarterback contract starter in the NFL. So, like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, they're giving him a lot of guarantees, but in the grand scheme, like, the size of like what he's actually getting, it's going to be really, really cheap, even if he does end up winning that job. And like, we have to remember too, that Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, those guys are under a lot of pressure to actually deliver results, especially Ballard, right? This is entering his 9th season, and he's never won the division. I don't know that he's won a playoff game. And so they're very much tied to Anthony Richardson, right? He's the guy that they've touted as their franchise guy. And so even though they have brought what you can look at as competition with Daniel Jones, like, I think they're still going to give him every opportunity to at least entering the season, that like prove us wrong again, right? I think that's kind of the way they're looking at it, because ultimately he's only started like 16 games or something, and he entered the NFL with everyone knowing that he was going to be raw. And then I think the other way to look at it is, like, if you can't beat out Daniel Jones, like, you were never going to be the franchise guy anyway. And so,
good way to put it.
There are multiple ways to kind of look at that situation, but I don't think the Colts are necessarily out fully. That they definitely have their foot out the door. But yeah, I mean, it's not like that quarterback battle is going to be exciting by any means. Like, it'll probably be one of the worst. But yeah, I don't think they've given up on Anthony Richardson.
Ben Arthur of Fox Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. You can find him at Ben Y. Arthur on Twitter, on X, however you refer to it. And Ben, we appreciate you taking some time with us on this Friday afternoon, and we'll probably be reaching back out to you between now and the draft. So stick around.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me, and have fun at the tournament.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
When we continue here on the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports today, we'll get into the grab bag. We got a little college football action stuff to talk about. We got some baseball going on. So check back with us after the break.
Only in Smashville are opponents welcomed with some good old-fashioned Southern hospitality. We'll give you a hand, cheer you on. Hey, we'll even leave a light on.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Tennessee. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the TSSAA.
The weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, continues as we come to you live from the Murphy Center site of the TSSAA Girls High School Basketball State Championships. York Institute up 36-25 on Gatlinburg-Pittman in the second Class 2A semifinal matchup here. And Wade with the nugget. It was York Institute 32, Gatlinburg-Pittman 21 at the half. McKenna Beatty had 21 of York's 32 points.
Yeah, it was a tie game between McKenna Beatty and the
Lady Highlanders. Yes.
So luckily she's got some assistance, so they do have the lead, even though she's giving them a pretty good shot by herself. GP just scored on this end, making it a 37-27 game as we come down on the halfway point of the third quarter here. Getting into the grab bag. The 2025 Southern Heritage Classic is set. Wade, we talked about TSU not playing in that. Jackson State had already pulled out of it a couple of years ago, but TSU and Arkansas Pine Bluff had played the last couple of years. Well, TSU pulled out this offseason. Mm-hmm. The game will now involve Pine Bluff and Alcorn State out of Mississippi. So
It's still an HBCU matchup, and these are two teams that are familiar with each other. In fact, Pine Bluff leads the series 22-20 with 3 ties. So they will play, apparently, what's the date on that? September 27th is what I'm seeing here. So that'll be at the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, formerly the Liberty Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And that game, that series, that classic has been revived after obviously some questions as to whether or not it was going to be played or what was going to happen with it. As we mentioned, some weeks ago, Tennessee State and Alabama A&M have established the Legacy Classic that they will play over the next 4 years, going back and forth between A&M and Nissan Stadium for that one. So
had a feeling, and we were hoping obviously that this would get continued, and despite kind of the scare, the drama for a little bit, it's good to see that it will continue, and we had a hunch. It just kind of turned into too big of a thing. You kind of just can't let it go away at this point. So that's exciting news. And at least keep it afloat. And then, if it's not ideal, then obviously you can go back to the drawing board and kind of tinker and get maybe really what you want going forward.
TSU had played in each of the previous, I think it was 33.
Since like 1990, right?
Yeah.
Or something
or
around
92,
there.
somewhere around there. Jackson State had played in 29 straight before pulling out in 2023. So, this is one of the staples of HBCU football, and it would have been really painful to see it just cease to exist entirely. So this is great news that Alcorn State and Arkansas Pine Bluff will be playing in the 2025 Southern Heritage Classic. Right before we came on the air, saw an article from AL.com. Apparently, Nick Saban's penchant for profanity on air has not gone over well with at least 3 ESPN Game Day viewers who filed complaints with the FCC. Profanity stuffed in my face was the way at least one viewer put it. And we're not going to read the profane statements that Nick made, but like I said, the Federal Communications Commission has received 3 complaints with regards to ESPN Game Day. Now, apparently, and you probably know this better than I do, but there's a difference because ESPN is a cable/streaming channel. They aren't necessarily held to the same standards as a terrestrial television network show would be. So there's that.
It's kind of, a little different. You're trying to adhere to the same general rules. You might as well just try and treat it, with kid gloves on, essentially. But that's Comedy Central. There's a reason, South Park can do whatever it does at 10 p.m. But Saban, we shouldn't really be shocked, I suppose. And I know not everybody wants to hear that, but I would rather hear that from an authentic Saban, the kind of him water it down and not give me his true self.
Yeah.
That's just me personally. I know that's not for everybody.
I think that has been one of the more refreshing parts of Nick Saban in that role. I think a lot of people wondered, given his, I don't want to say on again, off again, but certainly he was not warm and fuzzy toward the media in his previous capacity. And so I think there was some question as to how he would be as a media member. And I think he's been received pretty well, with the exception of these 3 complaints to the FCC, I guess. But interesting article on AL.com.
Could be Auburn fans.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, they've got
likely Auburn fans.
Certainly fans with kids who feel like their kids' sensitive ears weren't necessarily ready for Coach Saban and his utterances. So
it sounds like something noted Auburn fan and Pulaski citizen publisher Scott Stewart would do. I'm not saying anything. I don't know if there's IDs attached to these, but I'm just saying.
You're not saying, you're just saying.
There's a chance. There's at least a 1% chance it could have been Mr. Stewart.
The one final football note, and you knew it was coming. It was just a question of when. Tennessee State linebacker Sanders Ellis, former Station Camp standout, is in the transfer portal again. He was in the portal at the end of the 2024 season. I'm sorry, at the end of the 2023 season. He was named an FCS Freshman All-American in 2024 after the 2023 season. Went in the transfer portal, came back out, played his sophomore year, and now with the departure of Eddie George to Bowling Green State University, has gone back in the portal again. And already has an offer from Virginia Tech, apparently. So,
I mean, obviously, so many different ways to look at this, and I'm obviously always going to kind of root for the kid and kind of what they want to do. But, man, if you're a TSU fan, we opened up this segment by talking about them not participating in that Southern Heritage Classic. Then you lose Coach Eddie George just when it felt like TSU was really starting to gain some momentum. And this is, inevitable, right? We see this without coaching changes, unfortunately. But especially you throw that kind of in there. Got a feeling it may not even be the last in this next little window we got here.
Afraid not. Okay, Let me go back and clean something up real quick. Ellis was a freshman this past year, the 2024 season. Went in the portal at the end of the 2024 season, came back out, and is now back in it again for the second time in this academic school year.
Now, do we know, so is that because of the
coaching change?
Okay.
Yeah. You know, anytime there's a coaching change, you've got a 30-day window, regardless of when it takes place, to get in the portal, and he did.
You know, I'm not a betting man necessarily, but I don't know that we'll be seeing him back. If you already came back and then the coach leaves and now you're back in the portal again, that kind of feels like he's not long for TSU's campus. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and that's unfortunate for Tennessee State and whoever the next coach is, because obviously this is a very talented kid. Yeah. So, real quick here before we close out this segment, again, Southeastern Conference Baseball League play starts this weekend, and it's highlighted. The schedule is highlighted by 3 top 25 matchups, and it kind of makes sense that you've got at least that many, since 12 of the 16 teams are in the top 25 in D1 baseball's national ranking. You've got it's led off by number 7 Florida traveling to number 2 Tennessee this weekend. Number 17 Alabama is at number 19 A&M, and number 16 Vanderbilt goes to number 25 Auburn this weekend. But you've got some great matchups across the board, as you're going to have every weekend.
Yeah, I said it last year, and I mean, it really is true. I mean, it's basically leagues in a sense, right? I mean, you have competitive matchups across the board, and that's, we're not talking both teams have to be in the top 5 for it to be a fun and competitive series. One team, I mean, you can see some unranked teams really, really deliver some quality wins and some great play over the weekend. So this is kind of the time, if you're an SEC baseball diehard, I mean, you just sit back. The midweek games, you may catch a random opponent, ranked or otherwise, that kind of tickles your eye. But otherwise, this is what you live for. Speaking of, Ole Miss is already up 4-2 on Arkansas, which shockingly would be, depending on at least the rankings, Ole Miss fans may not agree, would technically be an upset.
Yeah. So LSU, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Georgia are the top 4 teams in the country as ranked by D1 baseball this week. Florida again is 7. Texas, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss are 11, 12, and 13. Vanderbilt 16, Alabama 17, A&M 19, and Auburn 25. Again, that's 12. 12 of the 16 teams in the Southeastern Conference are ranked in the top 25. It's going to be a meat grinder. Hour number 1 of the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, is in the books. Let's take a break. Let's come back for hour number 2. Let's talk some hoops. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, gets underway right now as we come to you from the Murphy Center on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University, where York Institute leads Gatlinburg-Pittman 50-37 in a Class 2A girls high school state basketball semifinal matchup. The winner will take on Westview out of Martin, which defeated Loretto in the earlier semifinal game. We got high school basketball going on. We got collegiate basketball action going on. We got all hoops all the time.
Yeah, this is it, baby. Tennessee up on Texas, but only a little bit, 17-14. Longhorns got to feel a little more confident if they can knock off Tennessee about their chances of getting in on Sunday.
Well, was it Jerry? Did Jerry say they needed 2 more wins?
Yeah, Jerry's not as high potentially. Obviously, that was, as he reminded us, before the results came in yesterday. Bracketmatrix.com. Texas had basically 1 vote, for lack of a better term, earlier in the week. Texas is currently your first team out. Them and Boise State. Texas is included in way more polls than Boise State. So you'd obviously feel a heck of a lot better if you can knock off the balls this afternoon.
First team out. How agonizing would that be? They take 68 teams and you're the number 69.
It'd be tough, and SEC is right there potentially flirting with that max of 14. If Texas can somehow will. So in a weird way, Sankey's probably hoping that Texas wins this game today, you would think, right?
Yeah, because Tennessee is in regardless.
Yeah.
Dennis Gates on the dice last night after Missouri's game, he said, we should have 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. And he just said it point blank.
I mean, you could certainly make that case. I mean, Texas is literally the last. I mean, we're splitting hairs about if Texas should get in, and that's the only real question. Everybody else is safely in the field at this point. So the fact that we're splitting hairs about should the 14th team get in. Now, granted, this year the bubble is very, very weak. There's not quite as many compelling arguments. You know, somebody like a Drake did not necessarily lose their conference championship game. To this point, there haven't been any real bid thieves.
Mm-hmm.
So Texas is hoping that certainly stays the course.
Yeah, yes.
Obviously, they're hoping they just win the whole thing. But if they can't do that, they would like to just hope that the favorites hold serve once they do taste defeat.
Absolutely. Again, Texas down 18-14 to Tennessee with 11:51 remaining in the first half down at Bridgestone Arena. This is the second game of the day down there. In the opener, it was Auburn defeating Ole Miss 62-57. A little closer maybe than you might have expected.
Yeah. This tournament has, produced a few little magic moments. We certainly saw the Wildcats kind of escape after seemingly had the game completely won. They rally late and but we're kind of getting close. And all the Marshall Henderson magic in the world wasn't enough, it sounds like, to get it done today for the Rebs versus Auburn.
Malik Dia.
Broom with 23 and 15 casual this afternoon.
Yeah, Malik Dia, 10.7 boards, 3 of 11 from the floor for the Rebels in that loss. So, we talked about MTSU having to work overtime last night, double overtime, as a matter of fact, to hold off La Tech 77-75, which meant MTSU covered because they were a 1.5 point favorite. And we didn't understand why. But Vegas, baby.
Vegas knows what's up. I'm telling you, that's kind of a trap game, right? That's one you just got to stay away from. I know you may want to get involved, but do not get involved because that one will come back to haunt you. And they're locked in a tight one at the half, it looks like right now. 35 up versus Jack State.
Oof.
Liberty survives a scare from Kennesaw State earlier in the day, 81-79.
So Middle trying to prevent a 1-2 matchup in the championship. And like you said, it's tied 35-35 at the half. Jack State a 2-point favorite in that one.
I mean, you would imagine. Yeah, I mean, makes sense, especially after MTSU battled their guts out last night.
Late.
Yeah,
last night.
You would be well within your rights to think that Jack State would have a small nod just from fatigue alone.
Mm-hmm.
And credit to Kennesaw State, who Chip has told us, is a scrappy team and capable of making a run, but Liberty does hold them off. This will be fun. The second half of MTSU Jack State, and then whoever survives this game today, taking on Liberty for that sole bid from CUSA.
We didn't get to talk about this yesterday a whole lot, although we did kind of explore it a little bit with Jerry Palm, CBSSports.com bracketologist. But Cooper Flagg not expected to play the remainder of the ACC tournament after suffering ankle injury in yesterday's win over Georgia Tech.
Not shocking, right? Probably Duke could still win the ACC tournament. They tip off at 6 tonight versus UNC. They're still favored by 7, roughly, depending on where you shop. So, I mean, Duke, you're okay, whatever happens. But if you do stub your toe, or even if you do win the tournament, they had a small chance if Auburn potentially fell, especially earlier in the SEC tournament. They had an outside shot at getting the number 1 overall seed. That kind of feels like the committee, as great of a season as Duke has had. If you don't necessarily know what percent healthy Cooper Flagg's going to be, it does feel like Duke probably just will have to settle for that number 2 overall.
And what's odd about that situation is, Auburn got their big injury out of the way early.
Yeah.
With Janai Broom getting hurt, getting back, as opposed to it happening in the conference tournament and you potentially being dinged for it by the selection committee.
Yeah. obviously no real way to predict either one of those. But yes, if you given a choice, you'd certainly rather have an injury. And it's fascinating. This is a 2-horse race. There's nobody even remotely close. Maybe Brandon Smith from up at Purdue is the only guy with an outside shot of getting in this mix for Player of the Year. But both guys have missed some time now due to injury and in the postseason, and also losing Jay Lucas. You wonder how will Duke kind of rally? Seemingly, they've got the goods to beat North Carolina today, and then they'll get Clemson or Louisville, which will be a tough showdown. Whoever they get in the championship game, especially without Cooper Flagg tomorrow.
And just as you say that it's pretty much a 2-horse race between Flagg and Broome, it also feels like a 2-horse race for that overall number 1 seed between Auburn and Duke. I don't really think Houston has much of a leg to stand on in that conversation, and Florida is closer to falling off the 1 line than they are to the overall number 1.
Yeah, it would have to take a very specific set of circumstances for Houston, Florida, or really the only other team, just because they would be able to rack up the right amount of wins versus the right amount of opponents, would be Michigan State. But it looks like we're pretty much solidified. Auburn, Duke, and Houston pretty much in that order, barring just something crazy happening. The only team with any real wiggle room might be Houston, and maybe potentially flip-flopping with Florida if things broke a certain way. But it looks like we're kind of going into Selection Sunday. You know, whether there might be some manufactured drama, but it doesn't necessarily feel like there will be a lot of true drama, at least in that regard.
Yeah. The Big 12, besides its court, it feels like the biggest drama there is BYU, who blasted Iowa State yesterday, or blasted past Iowa State with 18 threes, a Big 12 tournament record, 18 three-pointers in a 96-92 quarterfinal victory.
Good win for BYU. Iowa State had at least one guy, maybe 2, ruled out just a little bit before tip-off that kind of, maybe opens the door for BYU. But not only did they seize the moment, I mean, they flirted with 100. That was a very high-scoring game at 96-92. So, I mean, they kind of are a team now, Cinderellas don't always just exist in the big dance. We see some teams, maybe cut down the nets. BYU, after knocking off Iowa State, injuries or not, they get Houston tonight. And, I mean, if they slay Houston and then potentially a ranked Texas Tech also in the top 10 in the championship, talk about a Cinderella run that would be if they were able to pull that off.
As you said, Iowa State without guards Keyshawn Gilbert and Tamin Lipsey. Lipsey had started all 101 games that he had played in. That's a tough way to go down.
Yeah.
Had a muscle strain against Cincinnati and played 11 minutes in that one before not being able to answer the bell against BYU. But BYU 18 of 36 from behind the arc.
My goodness.
50%.
Jimmer wasn't in a uniform, was he? I mean,
you might have seen Frimmer Jadette or something like that. I don't know. Maybe he snuck in. That's a heck of a performance by the Cougars, whose reward is the other Cougars.
Yeah, they'll get a match. And BYU is kind of on the back half of the 6-seed line, it appears, across almost every major poll. So if they can beat Houston, certainly, and then if they got Texas Tech and were able to knock them off, I mean, you would imagine they might be able to sneak up into a 5 type realm. So a chance to kind of improve your seeding if you're the Cougs. And if nothing else, just getting a win versus a team the caliber of Iowa State this late in the season got to make you feel good no matter who your opponent is or where your seed is in the first round.
Exactly. Overview of the Big Ten tournament. Fran McCaffrey and the Hawkeyes went down fighting against Illinois last night. McCaffrey gets a couple of quick technicals in the second half and watches the rest of the game from the locker room. And it might be his last because they fell to Illinois 106-94. And I don't even think they're on the bubble. They're pretty much out of the NCAA. So Iowa officials have announced that they will probably be going in a different direction for next year. And I don't know if they'll even take an NIT bid.
Yeah, ironically, I was watching. I flipped on. I kid you not. I flipped on the TV to that game seconds before he got rung up, and it was a quick, swift departure for Fran, and with about 10 and a half, 11 minutes left in the game, and it was still, a winnable game for Iowa at that point. Illinois was controlling things, but Iowa did get it, within 6 at one point, but, maybe talk about riding off into the sunset. He did everything but, go out double guns a-blazing, if you catch my drift there.
Yeah. I do admire it's a tough balance, man, because you don't want to do anything to hurt your team, but you want your team to know that you're fighting for them. And so while it may not be the smartest thing to do to get ejected from a tournament ball game with double-digit minutes remaining and handing the clipboard off to your assistants, at least they know that you were fighting as hard as they were.
Yeah, and Big Ten Network said it best. I mean, he just said the right combo of words that got him rung out of there. And he's sneaky. He looks like a nice, wholesome, safe grandpa, that's out here just coaching his team. But he's got a little fire in his belly. He's had some famous run-ins with Big Ten officials over the years. So if it is the last hurrah, at least at Iowa, he's been there since 2010. There's been some decent run in that time, but it kind of does feel like we talked about Minnesota's coaching change yesterday. Kind of feels like it could be the end for Iowa.
Speaking of Minnesota's coaching change that was brought about by their loss to Northwestern 2 nights ago, what we didn't get to talk about was Chris Collins taking the Big Ten to task in his post-game comments after that win over Minnesota. Apparently, Collins not pleased with the Wildcats' lodging arrangements. Apparently, room temperatures at their hotel were upwards of 85 degrees.
That's worthy of filing a complaint.
Yeah, we're used to being treated like that by this league, Collins said after the win. The rooms were 1,000 degrees. There was no AC in the hotel, and our guys' rooms were 85 degrees, and that's where the league puts you. Everywhere that they turn, they're trying to get us. Now, I don't know why the Big Ten would necessarily be out to get number 13 seed Northwestern, but that was Chris Collins's, he's sticking to that apparently. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Well, I guess Collins will sleep a little more comfortably tonight because Wisconsin dispatched them last night 70-63.
Yeah, he'll get to sleep at a climate-controlled temperature more akin to his liking, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. You're right. I mean, it could have just been a flat-out issue with the hotel they were staying, but we like to romanticize the idea that, the Wisconsin beds were, nice. And the first thing you got to do is turn that thing as low as it possibly goes anytime you get into a hotel room. Certainly not up to 85.
No.
So, but yeah, there's no real behind this. And we've seen Collins. He's been animated. This is a guy, he famously drops to his knees. He really wears his emotions on his sleeve, and that's on the court. So kind of maybe not surprised that he said this as the Wildcats get bounced.
What really frustrated him was they said they've had this issue for the past 10 days at that hotel.
Okay, now if that has not been resolved by then, I'm not filing to the Big Ten. I'm filing to the Better Business Bureau. Is who I'm reaching out to.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I mean, that does not. Short of bed bugs or short of fire alarms going off. That's about as rough as it gets. And unless they got some sort of sauna situation going on with the strength coach, I don't know any reason that room should be that warm. You got to get that taken care of.
No doubt. Murray State, Steve Prohm announced late in the season that he would be stepping down at the end of the season. He has been replaced by Creighton assistant Ryan Miller. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Ryan is the younger brother of former Florida Gator and former NBA player Mike Miller. Prohm just finished his 3rd season of his 2nd stint with the Racers. He parlayed that position the first time around into a gig at Iowa State where things didn't go so well. And so he came back to Murray. Murray, in his 3 seasons this time around, finished below 500 twice and only won 2 Missouri Valley Conference tournament games, which is not what Murray State is used to.
No, and there's no, greener. The grass always looks greener on the other side, but they vacate the OVC for perhaps greener pastures, and they're finding out not always that great. I thought for sure Prome would have success there from the stint. I will never forget him and Isaiah Cannon coming into Clarksville and absolutely dumping Austin Peay back in 2012, and that was kind of in Prome's kind of real run and real heyday, and it seemed like a slam dunk it would work there, but as we see, not always the case. Good luck to Coach Miller.
Yeah, sometimes you can't go home.
Yeah.
He's been at Creighton since 2021 with Greg McDermott. Prior to that, he had been at Texas Christian, UNLV, Auburn, New Mexico, Pepperdine, and Memphis, working with guys like Steve Alford and John Calipari.
Seems like a good resume. Obviously the name recognition probably helps you a little bit, but certainly seems like he's got the chops and paid his dues along the way to get it. And, kind of like Prome, have some success there, a couple good seasons, maybe a deep tournament run. Who knows where that leads you to.
Steph Curry, 4,000 3-pointers. No one else in NBA history had done it.
He's what did I see the number? He's like some crazy number above number 2 already. Like 387. I got to pull this list up. But yes, that is just mind-boggling, right?
There have been 104 occurrences of a NBA player hitting 10 threes in a game. Curry's had 26 of those. So that's literally 25% of all of the 10 3-pointer games in NBA history.
To call him kind of generational would almost be doing a disservice. I mean, this guy just absolutely transcended. I mean, not to get too big picture, but think about it. We're sitting here at the girls' state tournament, and we see schemes and we see players playing the game and approaching the game a lot differently since Chef Curry kind of took over. And yes, 873 3-pointers clear of number 2 on the list, James Harden, which might kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Clay, his fellow Splash brother, former Splash brother, I guess. He's a little bit further down the list at 2667. So Chef stands alone at an even 4,000.
And you got to wonder who's going to catch him.
Nobody will be the answer. Until his perhaps son, if he has a young son anytime soon that decides to pick him up from half court.
Goodness gracious.
That I feel like that is going to be untouchable.
That's ridiculous. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we continue on the other side of this break, we will be joined by our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams from WCYB-TV out of Johnson City. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
The weekend warm-up continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We are getting ready for the first Class 3A semifinal matchup as both the Heritage Lady Mountaineers from Maryville and the Hornets from South Gibson are on the floor warming up. This game is set to tip. Well, it's set to tip at 4 o'clock. I wonder if it's going to go early.
They got 28 minutes on the shot clock here.
Okay, I guess that'll be about right. All right. The winner of that one will play the winner of the 5:30 game between Dyersburg and Northview Academy. In the last game, the 2A semifinals that we were keeping you up with earlier, York Institute won that one 60-45. The Lady Dragons will play Westview, a 64-39 winner over Loretto in the 130 Class 2A championship game tomorrow right here at Murphy Center. So congrats to the Lady Dragons.
Been some good ball today. Was talking with Matt Gillespie, who does a great job every year, obviously putting this thing together. Our media contacts at the TSSAA, and he kind of admitted, he hit a little bit of a wall yesterday, and even a few close games in the middle of the week, the crowds haven't just totally formed yet, as some teams are debating whether or not they want to make a long trip for potentially just one game. But today, we've been treated to some really good ball. Saw 2 fantastic single A games to crack us open, and it's been pretty solid action. Like you said, York just taking care of business a minute ago.
There we go. We are pleased to have with us at this time from WCYB-TV up in Johnson City, our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams. Heather, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Sorry about the other day. I got a question for you. What are the chances that I'll see you in person? One of my teams might be there next Saturday in the boys' championship.
Come on down.
There's a chance because we've got a couple of teams. Well, we've got 3 teams from our area that will be playing in the boys next week. We've got Santa Fe in 1A. We've got Loretto in 2A, and we've got Independence, the defending 4A state champion, coming back in 4A. So we may be around by the end of the week. So come on down, hang out. We won't be doing a show, but we might.
My question is, will my teams be there?
Well, no, that's a good question.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a question for your team, perhaps. You got to speak to the right people up there to make sure they can ensure that.
Hopefully, your teams will come through so that you can make the trip down.
Got Greenville in Class 3A and
Jacoby Gillespie ain't walking through that door.
No, but Trey Thompson's still there. Well, is there, and just a junior, being recruited by Tennessee, Purdue, among others.
Okay. So, maybe you got a shot. Okay,
yeah. And then North Green in Class 1A. Who
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Vegas this weekend.
Vegas this weekend, yes.
Christopher Bell or the field?
Yes. Gosh, I would probably take the field because only
I like that.
only 8 times prior has somebody won 4 races in a row in the 77-year history of the sport. So not exactly the easiest thing to do. But I hesitated because Christopher is good at Vegas. Like, he'll be one of the favorites this weekend. Gosh, it's good to be Christopher Bell right now. It's just so good to be Christopher Bell right now.
Yeah, I mean, he wins at Atlanta. He wins at Coda. I'm not sure how many people expected him to win it at Phoenix this past weekend. I mean, was that
of the 3 tracks? Phoenix is his best track, right? He won this race a year ago at Phoenix. So, but it's so hard to win 3 in a row. So no, and the Penske cars have been so good outside of Christopher at Vegas. I mean, you still wouldn't put the odds on that. Like, the odds wouldn't be in his favor to win 3 in a row. But that's definitely his best track. And when I talked to him last week before Phoenix, and he said, look, I'm the most confident on this race because I'm very good at Phoenix. It's one of my best tracks. And man, even with the late caution and people trying to wrestle away from him, he was not giving that up. That was his race.
It's mighty nice to have won 2 in a row, and then you feel like you're in your most confident track, or perhaps even this week for 4 in a row.
This
Vegas,
one's in my wheelhouse. Yeah, it's 3 in a row, but yeah, this is. Which was his least likely victory of the 3 so far?
Probably Atlanta. I mean, he hasn't shown himself to be one of the elite super speedway racers. Atlanta's not a full-on super speedway like that down there at Talladega, but it's a drafty track for sure. And so he hasn't really shown himself to be the guy at those tracks in the past. So that first one was definitely the most surprising. The thing is that not just Christopher, but all of Joe Gibbs Racing is extremely competitive, top of the field at the intermediate tracks, which will be the next 2 tracks in Vegas and then Homestead. He's also very good at Martinsville, walked off to get to the playoffs 3 years ago now at Martinsville, very good at Darlington and very good at Bristol. So the next 5 races, he'll also be among the top odds drivers to win those races.
And as JP Plant and I were talking on Wednesday, because Wade had obligations with Richland during that hour, but as we were talking, what's crazy is Christopher Bell has won 3 straight races and he's still not your points leader.
No, he's not. But I mean, it is crazy in the sense that this point system was kind of designed to keep that from happening, but you do have all the stage points. Your points leader is the Daytona 500 winner. You also have stage points that go into it, and William Byron has gotten more stage points. How we got to this point system in the first place is because in 2003, Ryan Newman won 6 races and was not the champion. Matt Kent was a champion who won only once. And that's how we ended up with the chase for the championship, which evolved into the playoffs because they wanted to put more emphasis on winning. Winning's still important. When they reseed the playoffs, when they get to the end of the season and they reseed the playoffs, as of right now, Christopher Bell's the 1 seed. So he would at that point be the leader and the guy with the advantage for winning the championship. But there are things like stage points and he just has more of them than William Byron has more of them than Christopher Bell at this moment in time.
Heather, I got to ask you, kind of in that old format, just you personally, do you like rewarding the guy that wins, the driver that wins the most races, or do you like, perhaps the most consistent over the course of the season, wins aside?
Oh no, I like this way better, and I know old school NASCAR drivers going to be like, that's blasphemy, but I watched too many times over the course of a season where the championship was decided a race or 2 before the final race of the year, and they were out there with nothing to race for. The champion would finish, 23rd because he's just trying to stay out of the way and not wreck so that he can win the championship. I covered when I worked in Kansas, even under the chase for the championship format, it was that way. I covered Clint Boyer when I was in Kansas, and I believe it was 2013 was the year he finished second. The year that he chased at Phoenix which was the second to the last race at the time. He chased Jeff Gordon through the garage at about, running like he was a marathoner because Gordon wrecked him, and that knocked him out of the playoffs and gave Jimmy Johnson the championship with a race and a half still to go. He was eliminated. We went to Homestead, which was where the championship race was at the time, knowing that Jimmy Johnson was already going to be the champion. I mean, how is it fun to watch the Super Bowl to know who's already won? Like, I need a little bit of drama in my final race. So, and you can make your Chiefs jokes, but we didn't win this year, so you didn't.
I wasn't going to touch that one. You did that to yourself, Heather.
I'm just saying, we didn't win.
Heather Williams of WCYB-TV out of Johnson City joining us here on Main Street Sports today, talking some racing. If not Christopher Bell, who this weekend?
At Vegas, there's a lot of drivers that are good. Like I said, Jogan's Racing is good, so I would look at his teammates, particularly Denny Hamlin, who finished second last weekend, seems to kind of be getting his mojo back. The Penske cars are all strong on the mile-and-a-half races, and the Hendrick cars. I mean, and honestly, 2311 is strong on those mile-and-a-half racetracks, probably more so next week at Homestead, but any high-speed racetrack, those core teams are kind of be your folks that are going to be up there.
Heather, while we were kind of getting ready to bring you in, I discovered this. What can you tell me about the 4-part docuseries on Dale Earnhardt that's going to come out? I'm kind of blown away by reading this 4-part series. Going to be on Prime Video, and not only Ron Howard going to be helping produce, but Ryan Grazer as well. So I mean, we're talking some big names in Hollywood going to be talking about the Intimidator. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I know as much as you do reading it. I don't have any really inside scoop on what happens with Prime. Wish I did. Maybe give me a little discount too.
No ads, please.
But I'm excited to see it. I mean, obviously Dale Earnhardt is, along with Richard Petty, the preeminent names, recognizable names, 7-time champions in our sport. Even people that aren't NASCAR fans know who those two are. They're characters in the sport. He's an interesting story. I've watched most of the other films that have been made on him. I
was just getting ready to ask. It doesn't feel like there has been a preeminent, or totally satisfying piece on this guy yet, right?
Yeah, and I think it being, obviously we've come a long way in movies and that kind of stuff, and docuseries, and with the addition of Hulu and Netflix and Amazon into the field, they have way bigger budgets and way more, resources and the ability to get a Ron Howard to be in the project like that. So I expect this to be really well done, which is good. I think our sports stars need that in the sport. I think that will help grow the sport. I mean, when there had been several little documentary series done similar to, Drive to Survive with NASCAR, but when Netflix did the one last year, and I'm sure the one that drops in April this year will be the same, it was just light years ahead of the other ones. It was just way better. They had better resources, and even using a lot of the same people because they did it through NASCAR Productions, but just having the money and the resources to take it from good to great, and the reach for more people to see it, right? More people have those streaming platforms, and maybe USA, which is where the previous documentary series on NASCAR had run.
I'm excited to watch it, and I feel like it, like you said, it will, by being just on Prime alone, I feel like it's going to tap into a different audience, and folks that either are casual race fans, diehards, or potentially not even race fans at all.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what F1 did with Drive to Survive, right? That's how they hooked in a lot of people and made them race fans, even though I don't get it. I mean, I don't get F1 racing. It's fine.
That makes me wonder how much of the real Dale Earnhardt comes out in this. I wonder because I grew up. My mother's a diehard NASCAR fan, and that was her guy, and so therefore I pretty much raise hail, praise Dale type situation all my life. But I know obviously it's a semi-complicated story, and a guy that perhaps, unless you're a fan, you're not really the biggest fan of, if a fan at all.
Yeah, I mean, when Dale was around, most people didn't like him. There's a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of people that say that they're Earnhardt fans now that really love to hate him. He got more boos, or the same amount of boos, as cheers at a racetrack. I mean, he was the black cat, the intimidator. He was the heel if you're a wrestling fan. He was to racing then. And it's not quite comparable because obviously he doesn't have a racing resume, but he was to racing then what Denny Hamlin is now, right? He was that guy. People didn't love him until very late in his career, I would say, when he finally won the Daytona 500. That was a little bit of a turning point for him. And you see this a lot with drivers, right? It's happening now with Kyle Busch. It happened at the end of his career for Kevin Harvick. The older the guys get, the more the boos turn to cheers, and people start to like them a little bit more. But he had a complicated life. His relationship with his children was not all, rosy. It was not all, loves and hugs, because Earnhardt wasn't a loves and hugs kind of guy. So I'm fascinated by him, and I'm fascinated to see if I learned anything about him that I didn't know from this series.
That's some interesting stuff from the two of y'all, actually. Heather Williams from WCYB-TV out of Johnson City joining us here on Main Street Sports today, talking a little NASCAR, getting us ready for Vegas this weekend as Christopher Bell goes for a not unprecedented, but a rare fourth Cup Series victory in a row, and we'll be looking out for that over the weekend and hopefully checking in with Heather midweek next week to get her thoughts on what goes down in Vegas.
The last time to do it was Jimmy Johnson, by the way, 4 in a row. And every person that did it previously is in the Hall of Fame, except for one guy that was Harry Gant, who should be in the Hall of Fame and probably will be at some point. Every other guy on that list is a Hall of Famer.
There you go. So Christopher Bell flirting with
immortality,
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we'll see how that goes. Heather, we appreciate it. And again, look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Fun as always.
Thank you, Heather.
When we continue here on the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we will get into our final segment of the day, final segment of the week, the weekend warm-up, as we get you ready for the weekend. Stick around when we come back.
Welcomed with some good old-fashioned Southern hospitality. We'll give you a hand, cheer you on. Hey, we'll even leave a light on.
Welcome back, folks. Live from MTSU's historic Murphy Center. Final segment of what has been a busy, fun, and hopefully entertaining week here as Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, rolls right along. I'm glancing. My partner in crime has made a quick departure, but don't worry, he'll be right back. Wade Neely saying hello. Mo Patton set to rejoin us here in just a matter of moments. As Mo told you guys right before we went to our final break of the show this afternoon, busy weekend on tap, the weekend warm-up. We kind of get you prepped, get you ready for what should be a big weekend. And I feel like Mo will be okay if we kind of kick things off by talking about what should be a fantastic showdown in the NBA this evening as the Memphis Grizzlies. It is a big weekend for the Memphis Grizzlies, and I want to run some of that by Mo here in a second. But I know he is excited, as much as Mo gets excited at least, about the NBA for tonight's game, as the Cleveland Cavaliers will come to town. Big showdown in Memphis, the NBA's best, arguably, certainly in the East. The Cleveland Cavaliers will come in 55-10 overall, and the Grizz sitting there at 42-24. Should be a fun matchup tonight. Cleveland is a small favorite on the road, and justly so. They will come in having won 15-plus in a row. I told you guys he'd be back, and here he comes.
Sorry about that. I forgot that was a short break. My bad. What did I miss?
We were just hyping up that you were getting ready to watch Grizz and Cavs tonight, and I have a feeling the Cavs are going to be, like I said, favored in this one, and Vegas agrees. They're favored by 2.5. Memphis has got a big weekend on tap. They got this game tonight, and then tomorrow night, Tony Allen's number 9 will go in the rafters
against the Heat.
Yeah,
That's
they pay
cool.
homage. So getting kind of a big weekend started in many ways. Yeah, it's going to be such an emotional night tomorrow versus the Heat, but tonight is one that you would really, just to kind of be able to, strut around Beale Street a little bit. Be nice if they could knock off the Cavs at home.
Man, that'd be huge. Cavs, I think I walked up right as you were mentioning. The Cavs are on a 15-game win streak, which matches their longest in franchise history, and it's a short history because it was the first 15 games of this season that they won to set that record. So Cavs going for number 16, and the Grizzlies not wanting that to happen at FedEx Forum. So,
big showdown tonight, and we'll keep tabs on that. That one gets underway as we open the show by telling you guys at 7 o'clock. Catch it on FanDuel Sports South. Yeah, like I said, big one there, and be fascinated to see if the Grizz can take care of business at home versus one of the NBA's best.
Be fascinating to see if the Predators can take care of business out on the West Coast tonight against the Anaheim Ducks. If they do, that would extend their win streak to a matching season's best 5 in a row. They extended it to 4 with their win at San Jose a couple of nights ago. So this would be a big one for the Predators as they, wind down what has been a disappointing season at best.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get a little confidence, and we've talked about it once or twice in the last 2 weeks. Definitely with Ann last week when we kind of wrapped up the trade deadline. There are some guys that are walking around that clubhouse that either know they have to get in form if they want to stay, or if they even come back, they got to kind of keep fighting for their job. That's what's interesting about the NHL. The minor league is kind of there, always lurking in the back. Outside of a few superstars, you don't really think about, getting super excited about call-ups. But when you're a team that's in the situation that Nashville is, everybody, especially with Barry Trotz kind of pulling the strings, everybody's kind of be glancing over their shoulder.
Yeah. Anaheim, meanwhile, has lost 4 of its last 5. So, they might kind of be primed for the plucking here tonight when Nashville comes in. And it seems like Nashville, have they already won this series? They played twice before, I think, and I don't remember how those came out. But I think Nashville's had some success against these guys.
Off the top of my head, I feel like they won both of those games.
That's what I was thinking.
I'm trying to confirm that, but this is, kind of 2 of the bottom feeders in the Western Conference at the moment. The Ducks have certainly not played well this year, so this will be one more so. Yeah, the fans will hopefully be entertained, but be one more so for the execs to kind of do some continued talent evaluation.
Actually, they lost at Anaheim on January 25th. That stopped that 5-game win streak that was their season best. So
the table has been set yet again here.
There we go. Yeah, so, hopefully, again, this team isn't going anywhere, but there's nothing wrong with a little momentum to end the year if you can get it. So maybe Nashville can pull through on the front end of a back-to-back. Again, they go to the Kings tomorrow night to wrap up this 3-game West Coast swing.
You got two choices, Mo, if you're the Preds. You either need to keep winning just to keep the good vibes rolling and kind of keep selling some tickets, or you need to go ahead and start losing because MoneyPuck.com, the Sharks are fixing to own this number 1 pick. They're gaining steam. They got a 23% chance to finish. They're projected to only end the season with 59 points, and again, a 23% chance at number 1 overall. Nashville kind of a little bit further outside that zone. A nice, comfortable 8%, 7.9 to be exact, for the Preds. So we'll see what happens out there on the West Coast. Stay up late and catch the Preds this evening, folks.
Absolutely. You got a chance at a nice little double dip there. I mean, you can watch the Cavaliers and the Grizzlies, and then you can probably flip it over to the Preds and the Ducks and catch a good chunk of both of those. So nice little Friday night there. The third game of that series will be next Thursday at Bridgestone. So the Preds can pick one up here and pick one up next Thursday and win that season series there. So
it'd be nice to get a little mojo going. And real quick, my Spidey sensors were tingling. You don't even have to worry about FanDuel and then the godforsaken app tomorrow. The Grizz will be taking on the Heat. You'll get to see Tony's jersey go up on WSMV here locally in the Nashville region.
Man.
One of those 5 games they're picking up down the stretch as we get ready to creep toward the end of the regular season. NBA kind of sneaks under the radar here as college basketball kind of takes hold for the next 3 to 4 weeks or so.
Yeah, nice way to get in there right there before all of that gets going on the collegiate level. But yeah, that'll be nice for Nashville fans to be able to see that on over the air television. Sunday afternoon, we mentioned it during the rundown, 125 first touch in Philadelphia as the Nashville Soccer Club goes for its second straight victory. Only issue is the Philadelphia Union is undefeated at 3-0-0.
Philly's undefeated. Philly's had their number, knocked them out of the playoffs a couple years ago in their final season, competing at Nissan before they moved to Geodis. This has kind of been a matchup that has not really necessarily gone Nashville's way more often than not. They will have to be at their best, but this is one of those games, Mo. I feel I'm not going to predict a win necessarily, but this is one of those games by hiring B.J. Callahan, be prepared to live with the result. In my opinion, there's a much greater chance of winning the match tomorrow night, or this weekend rather, than under Gary Smith. However, there's also a much higher chance of losing. Smith was probably a little more capable of at least ensuring a draw on the road and getting that precious road point. So you kind of got to live by the sword, die by the sword type situation. But this is kind of what you get under Callahan. Your ceiling is a little bit higher, but your floor is a little bit lower.
Okay.
In terms of offensive production, I don't know that Gary would have had the goods to probably go out and be able to get 2 or perhaps even 3 on the road to win this match, but Callahan certainly, at least that's what has been promised to us thus far.
Okay. Well, we will. That will certainly be something to look for as that unfolds on Sunday afternoon. The Players' Championship, Minwoo Lee tied for first right now. He's done for the day, as is Bacha. Both of them are 11 under for the tournament, 6 under on today. J.J. Spawn is 2 strokes behind them. He is also in. Rory McIlroy is tied for 4th, and he's done for the day. So heading into Saturday, we've got a little bit of a log jam at the top, looks like.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. Look forward to hopefully catching some of this weekend. Scheffler, our guy, Scotty's kind of right outside the top 20, or right outside the top 10, rather, at 5 under. He posted two shots to the good today. And this is a tournament that kind of, Morikawa is kind of in the mix there in the top 5. It feels like we're destined toward a fun finish, whether or not, guys like Scotty, whether guys like Rory are potentially in there. It feels like it'll be competitive, and that's when you like those nerves to kind of get dialed up as you get ready to tee off on 17 with just a little extra competitive juice back behind you.
should be interesting. Oh, by the way, we talked about a kid from the University of Texas getting thrown out of Tuesday's practice round for heckling Rory McIlroy. I think he issued an apology for that and maybe got back in some good graces after that. But did not look good for the youngster from Texas earlier this week. Pretty ugly situation that resulted in McIlroy taking his phone from him. So some early week shenanigans at the TPC.
Got to get back into good graces, and you know, the last thing you want to is you don't want to get kicked out and lose your phone. You can do one or the other, but you don't want to have both happen to you, right?
You mentioned it at the top of the show. Selection Sunday. You know, all the bracketology and everything else becomes obsolete around, this time or a little after on Sunday, as both your NCAA men's Division I brackets and your NCAA women's Division I brackets will be announced, and we will know the fields of 68 for both. So, exciting times.
Yeah, we're coming down the stretch, and then, we just get a couple sleeps right after that. We're right into the thick of things as we get cranked up in Dayton next week. We mentioned Belmont ladies will be in action. Obviously, we'll be keeping tabs on them, keeping tabs on the Lady Raiders and the MTSU men still battling. So those one bid leagues, that's what makes it so fun to me, is when you kind of come down the stretch. A lot of bids have already obviously been handed out, but some teams either tonight, tomorrow, and then a few will be handed out, including the Ivy League on Sunday. It's kind of interesting. You got the SEC, you got the Big Ten, you got the A-10. The Ivy League said, hey, we want to be on that stage too, so they wait till Sunday to get their final. So it'll be a lot of fun this weekend. This is about as good as it gets this time of the year.
All right, now Jacksonville State leads Middle Tennessee State 64-59 with 3:49 remaining in regulation down in Huntsville. Also, Tennessee leads Texas 45-40 with 10:24 to play in that quarterfinal down at Bridgestone. So later tonight, Western and Middle will play in a women's semifinal matchup down in Huntsville, and we'll be, again, keeping an eye on that. Also,
one thing, too, for anybody that is going downtown, I did see this. It was already cleared out last night, but the SEC is officially already scrapped. They have a giant plaza kind of party that they've had, man, I feel bad for the organizers because they put so much time and work into it. But rode by it last night. It's already scrapped for the rest of the weekend in anticipation of severe weather, and obviously hoping everybody stays extremely safe over the next 24-48.
Yeah, it's expected to get pretty rough, like you said. So y'all be careful, be safe, and
we've seen some SEC tournaments impacted by weather in years past, so maybe hopefully everybody at Bridgestone will be okay.
I was actually down there for that.
Yeah, that's wild.
I swear I will never again make fun of anybody for saying that a tornado sounded just like a train.
That's what they say. I hope I don't run into that experience ever.
Because that's exactly what it sounded like. Yeah. Among other tournament brackets that will be announced Sunday is the National Junior College Athletic Association Division I men's tournament that takes place out in Hutchinson, Kansas. And the Chargers of Columbia State will be waiting to hear their name in that one. Check MainStreetMurray.com over the weekend for coverage of who the Chargers opening round matchup is and what their path will be to a national championship, because we will have that laid out there. That's going to do it for the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Early on, Heritage leads who is this? Oh, South Gibson. I'm sorry. Heritage leads South Gibson 4-2 early on. And we will let y'all know who won all of these ball games on Monday when we see you at 2 o'clock here on Main Street Sports Today. Have a great weekend.